How do I develop a sustainable recovery?
Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast.
I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler.
We're brothers,
We're therapists.
and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
Hey, Tyler, you ready to have some hard conversations?
Let's do it.
Let the Therapy Brothers podcast begin.
Brandon, what's going on, man?
Oh, just, doing my thing.
Always. Hey, I want to ask you this question really quickly. This came up.
I'm a little nervous here.
Just this came up over the week. I was just thinking about you and thinking about our childhood. And I want to know what comes to your mind when you hear the word slash.
Yeah, I know why you asked this question, because it makes you look so good. Yeah. Slash was the dude in seventh grade that out of the blue on the bus, he went by Slash.
That was his nickname, right? Because he was
He
trying to be tough.
headbutted me like as hard as he could, right in my head, just like pop me just for no reason, out of the blue. And so I was like crying in my bus seat, and Tyler saw me crying, and Slash got off the same bus stop as us, and Tyler started beating Slash up. Like, what are you doing here? And Tyler starts crying while he's beating him up, like, because Tyler doesn't like beating anyone up, like, and Slash doesn't know what to do. Yeah. But I appreciate an older bro that had my back.
Well, what happened is that Slash also was brandishing a knife on the bus, so he was like threatening.
Yes,
people
he was pulling knives out.
He was just being a total a-hole. So after we got off the bus, I went and started to beat him up, and then I felt sad that I was beating him up, and then of all people, Diane Driggs, our neighbor,
stop it.
She came driving by in the car, and I got in trouble for it. She's like, Tyler, like, you better stop that right now. Like, I'm like, oh shoot. So now I'm in trouble. I already feel bad, but yeah, for some reason I just had the memory of Slash go through my mind this week.
And how Slash handled it. He went back to school, junior high, the next day, and started the rumor that he beat up our dad. Okay,
yes, way to go, Slash.
Good job, Slash. I hope that dude's doing well now.
I do too. I wish the very best for Slash.
So, well, with that in mind, let's move on to our guest here. Abraham, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi.
It's good to have you. If you could give us just a little bit of your story and tell us what's going on with you, and then ask any questions you have.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Glad to be here. Pornography is part of my background, as well as emotional, and I've been physically and emotionally abusive. Things came to a head in 2020, and I realized I had to make some changes in my life. And I've addressed quite a bit of the stuff. I still have some things like, video game addictions. I guess you guys call it video games, Mountain Dew and porn or whatever. I would substitute Dr. Pepper, but so I've got lots of stuff to work on.
That's the gateway.
So I've got lots of stuff to work on. I've been divorced now three weeks, and so really just wanting to maintain my recovery and move forward in a good, healthy way. I guess be there for I've got 5 kids. Be there for them.
So you've been divorced only 3 weeks, and during, like, if you could give just a little bit more, were you in therapy? Were you trying to work on the marriage for a long time? What happened?
Yeah, we were in and out of counselors' offices for years. Through, I think they were probably pretty good marriage counselors. I didn't even know all the problems I needed to work on, though. I did go to an ARP group, back in, I don't know, maybe 5-8 years ago. And that's really where I was finally able do something about pornography, which I was really grateful for, because up until that point, it just felt like maybe I was defective or something. But I didn't the anger. I didn't really have a good way to deal with that. Recovery is about a lot more than getting sober, as I know now. And I hadn't really dealt with a lot of the inner stuff. 2020, we've been in with a lot. I've been working with a counselor ever since then, pretty steady. I currently have a counselor. I meet with them once a week. I'm in a men's group, Tyler's men's group. And I also have a men's group that a couple guys and I put together on Tuesdays. We're going over Fathered by God. I've done a lot of effort in the last 3 years.
Could I just ask you, Abraham, in that effort that you've been working on, so this is in the midst of your relationship being on the rocks for the last 3 years too, you've put the work in on yourself. Could you just describe any of the pertinent things that you think that have been valuable to you, or that you're learning, or that you're proud of in the work that you're doing, or the progress that you've made up to this point?
Boundaries comes to mind. I remember the first time I heard about boundaries we read the Townsend, I forget the names of the authors, but the Boundaries in Marriage book. And it really didn't sink in. Heard a lot of Brannon's podcasts, and that didn't sink in. It took a long time to really get that boundaries were about understanding who I was and what was okay with me, and then being willing to communicate that. So that was a change. In fact, when we got separated the last time, which was March of last year, it was because I think both she and I were more willing to know what our boundaries were, and things weren't working right, and so we stuck to our boundaries better,
which led to the divorce.
Yeah. I do want to, if I can throw out there, I do feel really blessed to have been married to her for 23 years. Really intelligent, brave, loyal, fiercely loyal person. And I feel like the 5 kids I have, I'm just humongously blessed. It's, as much as I hate getting divorced, I wouldn't throw out getting married. To 23 years of marriage was a huge blessing in my life.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, Abraham, what you brought into the marriage. So, you're in a group talking about Fathered by God. It seems like she was a great person, you just said. Before you married her, what kind of wounds were there, and what was going on with your trauma and your shame?
I didn't really know who I was. I didn't realize how broken I was. I look back and I wish, it's kind of interesting because, I didn't tell her really about pornography being something that I was working on. But there was so much more that I didn't tell her. I didn't tell her, hey, I've got all this anger inside and I don't have anything to do with it. I didn't tell her, hey, I really don't know what it means to be a man. Of course, when you get married, you're just a kid. So what was I supposed to know anyway? But I had all these ideas that were probably half wrong.
Where was all the anger coming from, and why didn't you know what it meant to be a man?
The anger part, I don't think I have more anger than anyone else. I just didn't know what to do with it. My mom called me a peacemaker when I was a kid, and that was a label that kind of stuck with me. But I had fought with my brothers, constantly as a kid. You guys talk about fighting. Some of it gets a little out of hand, where you got your brother in a headlock and
you can lose your 2 front teeth,
yeah.
stuff like that.
when I was 6, someone told me, "Hey, you got to beat up your brother." He was 4. He's 2 years younger than me. When I was 6, they're like, "You got to beat up your brother to show him who's boss." And I ended up unconscious.
Your 4-year-old brother.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as not knowing what it meant to be a man, I don't know. I guess just a lot of expectations. No More Mr. Nice Guy kind of summarizes a lot of the things that would apply to me. Like, boy, people think I'm a pretty cool guy sometimes. I'm able to put on a lot of different masks and show up as try to show up as a person that they'd want me to be.
What was your relationship like with Dad?
Boy, going through the boyhood section of Fathered by God, I had so many really great memories, just like camping and fishing and hiking and all that really great stuff. And at at the same time, sometimes he just wasn't there for me. I've gotten to talk with him more recently. I had no idea the stuff he was struggling with. We all expect our parents to just to know what's going on. So given everything, I think he did a really great job. But I felt like I disappointed him a lot.
How were you a disappointment to him, Abraham?
It's just little things. It's funny, just not waking up on time in the morning. As silly as that sounds, that was like a really big sticking point between the two of us, and it's something I still struggle with. And yeah, I just, like maybe I didn't work hard enough, or I don't know.
Were the moments that he wasn't there attributed to the fact that you were failing in those ways as you were a child growing up?
I don't know. This. I don't know if I could. I don't know if I knew enough to think about it that way. I just thought that that's what a guy does. He works really hard, and he might be gone all the time, but he does it so that a wife or a mom can be there with the kids. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. He's a really great grandpa. He shows up really well for his grandkids.
You say you're the oldest, you say?
Yeah.
How many kids are in your family?
8.
8 kids, you're the oldest and the oldest son. And I imagine there was a lot of pressure, at least maybe self-imposed, but maybe coming from him as well, to step up and set a good example and be a good sibling. Is that true?
Yeah. Your great example was a really common thing to hear. And I didn't do anything like Tyler. Like, I didn't have good grades. I didn't do very well in sports. Music's really important in my family, so I was in honor band, all-state honor band, all-state honor choir. So I did all that kind of stuff, but.
Can you, like, the wound here is, if you've read Wild at Heart or Fathered by God, the wound here is kind of tricky, but it's very apparent. As you're talking about this, you're somewhat in this role of family hero, at the same time constant disappointment. And I'm not saying this to rip on Dad or anything, But the fact of the matter is the wounding is happening because love was contingent upon something. It wasn't unconditional love. It wasn't just loving you for that. It sounds like to me there wasn't a feeling from you of just like, you know what, I can screw up, I can make mistakes. I'm loved no matter what. And I'm good enough and I don't have to be perfect. And some of that might have been the things your dad did, and a lot of that might have been the way that you interpreted what worth was and what value was in the relationship. So it was a combination of those two things. But it led to this, this wound led to this belief in this paradigm that you've been under for so long. And can you articulate that belief or that paradigm that I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about, Abraham?
Well, it sounds like you're talking about like I need to perform to have value. Like my value in the world is based on what I output.
That's it. Now with that recipe, what you'll see on the back end, like the outcomes of it, are resentment, anger, Mr. Nice Guy, faking it, trying to please all the time. So that's what you'll see. And so, 23 years of your marriage, that's what you tried to do. And it didn't work out for you in the long run because in the end, is that how you get love?
No.
No. So, but you're in this paradigm, this belief system that is what I do. So it's hard to just break out of that and shift out of that and heal those wounds, right?
Right. Yeah.
So do you know how to really truly heal those wounds?
Well, I guess first, like I've been working on improving my relationship with God.
Okay.
So that I can rely on Him for my value and not like what I do in the world. I don't know. That's the only thing that comes to mind.
How are you working on that relationship? Like, what do you mean?
Not very well. I talk with Him every once in a while. Sometimes right before I go to bed, I just throw a prayer up His way. No, when I'm doing it well, like I'll get out in nature, go on a walk or something, and really, I've had some really good, conversations, and I really, sometimes I can really feel God's love for me, but it's kind of fleeting sometimes.
Abraham, I just want to say to you that I can feel love for you right now and just the way that you are, the way that you're showing up. I want to maybe just kind of illustrate a little bit further where Brannon was saying about you didn't intentionally go and put on masks and manipulate people and all that stuff because you were cunning. You were doing it because you thought that's what a good man was supposed to do, right? And now you're in this spot going like, oh, it's been that jumping through the hoops with the belief attached that that's the way I'm going to be loved, that's actually caused me to like think of all the effort that's gone into that, thinking it was going to produce something that it never produced, and how much room there would be for love and compassion for somebody who was doing that with a heart that intended good things, right? And so where I think you're going is a good start, Abraham, that you are wrestling with God, and you said you're having some good conversations. I also wonder if there's another piece to that, which is to notice yourself when you're living with the old belief, because that was formed before you could even be aware that it was being formed. It wasn't chosen right off the bat. It was kind of built in and accepted. But now that you're growing, now that you're seeing, you get a chance to notice those things. You can actually use that noticing in a way that can help move you towards a different outcome than the one you've been getting.
Okay.
So how would you use that? If you noticed, you hang up the phone and one of your friends calls and asks you to do something, but you don't have time to do it, but you say yes anyway. Like, what can you do with that would actually try to change the narrative that you've been living in for so long?
Well, I mean, I guess the first thing I've been doing, I've been trying to be more honest with people, and more open. Like when they ask me how I'm doing, I'll try to see if they're willing to really know what's going on. Um, and like maybe the answer is not always I'm doing well. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. I don't know that I know the answer because I still feel that way. If I can't follow through on something, it really feels like a failure on my part.
Yeah.
There's still a really quick default to, well, yeah, I must be defective. A good person would do this, or a good person would be able to show up.
Are you aware of when that feeling and that script comes into your mind? Oh, I must still be defective. A really good person would blank.
I'm more aware of it now.
That's the point I'm trying to make, is wherever you become aware of it, it's that awareness that then allows you to make a different approach than the one you've been making to try to find your value all along. Right. So now you're aware of that. Oh, there's the old story. What now? If that's the
Yeah,
old story that hasn't produced for me, what's the truth then?
Yeah, one of the things that I think would line up with what you just said is I've shared pretty openly in our group, and some of the guys sometimes they'll point out, "Wow, Abraham, you're really hard on yourself," and um, that's been really helpful because when I'm doing that inside my head, I can catch on to it.
How has it been helpful to you for them to see and acknowledge that in you?
Well, I guess it's because they can see how flawed I am, like maybe even more than most people, and still accept me
Yeah,
and wish the best for me.
there's a feeling of acceptance inside of your brokenness. It's a direct assault on the old belief. And there's something in your spirit and your soul that goes, that feels good, that's true.
Yeah, that sounds right.
What I want to ask a question, Abraham, here. What if you fail?
Dude, I'm really good at failing.
Okay. So then what does that mean if you fail?
Well, if I'm stepping into a growth mindset, it means I get to try again. I can take a step. I can take a couple steps back, figure out what went wrong. What did I do wrong? Maybe failing was the right thing to do.
So I want to thank you for your Sunday school answer, and
Which is really good.
And it was a great answer.
Yeah.
It was the right answer. That is the right. That's awesome. But like for you, how does that feel? What does that mean to you, and what has that meant to you as the oldest of 8, as this person who needs to do the right thing? What does that mean to you? What's at stake?
Well, I mean, it starts out with if I felt when I fell, it means that I'm not good enough. I'm not. Defective is almost a more advanced way of thinking about it, but I don't know. Like, well, I get to compare myself with my former wife sometimes, and sometimes I just think, man, she's a better human being than I am.
Okay.
You know.
So that goes through your head a lot, that you're not good enough. You're not as good as she is. You've kind of lived under this for a long time. You talk about your father wounds of like, I can't live up to what I should be. There's a deficiency. I'm a failure. I'm not fully loved. when you think of your 5 kids, Abraham, and how you feel about them when they're born, when you see them, do you only love them when they're like acting perfectly and not failing?
No.
Well, okay, so why on one end is this paradigm of earning love for you happen, but on the other end, to your children, it's different. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have felt the message from your dad that your love was conditional. In your dad's heart, maybe he didn't feel that way. Maybe what you experienced you interpret it that way, but maybe he didn't feel that way. Now, I know God doesn't feel that way about you.
Yeah.
So how do you let that sink in? That it's interesting, Abraham, because a lot of times recovery and the way things are laid out, it just sets up this whole paradigm even more of do this, do that, do this, do that, and then you'll be good enough. Stay sober long enough, go to this many groups, go to this retreat, do this thing, and then you'll be a good enough, strong enough person in recovery. And the reality is 12 steps. Step 3, turn your will and your life over to the care of God. Let go and let God. Allow, Eldridge talks about this. Open up to some initiation with God. Just open up your heart. It's about surrender to, I'm not going to put on the show. The dog and pony show's over. Trying to be good enough isn't what I'm going to do to try to find God's love. I'm just going to allow it. I'm going to allow it in all of my sins, in all of my struggles, and all these voices of I'm not good enough and I'm not okay and I have to prove myself. I'm just going to put those aside for a minute and just feel God's love. Right? Now, does that sound foreign? Does that make sense?
No, it definitely makes sense. Yeah. I've been, we went over I forget how it came up, but I was looking at the prodigal son, the story, and how the father. I feel like we don't talk about the father enough. And you just said it, Brannon. Like he's running to meet his son with open arms, and I feel like maybe I could learn how to accept that love by really working on that, because there's parts of my life, like you said, where I can be more like the prodigal father and just love my kids very openly. And no matter what happens, hey guys, I'm always going to be here for you,
Right. But to receive that love is there's a block. And it's these faulty core beliefs that are saying, no, I'm not good enough to be loved. I'm not okay enough to be loved. And what we don't want to do with you, Abraham, is give you the laundry list of all the things you should do in order to be loved. What you do want to focus on, 3 weeks post-divorce, you've been through something really hard, you're in an emotional state of mind. This change, it can be really good for you because it can wake you up to let go of some of these things and to allow God in. And some of the things Tyler and I at our retreats, not to let the cat out of the bag, but we've seen miraculous things happen. Little God winks all the time, things that aren't coincidences. And during that retreat, or in my life and in Tyler's life, all the time we're seeing like, whoa, like God's like fighting for me like crazy and is connected to me in every moment. And I know that. And I don't have to be perfect to have those things happen to me. Right? Tyler, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up, Brannon. Just a really quick side note, then I want to come back to what you said, is that I look for God in those ways every day, and I happened to find God in a game of croquet of all things yesterday.
Oh, croquet is awesome.
But it's like, well, I think where you're going though, Brandon, is that when the scales come off of the eyes, and when I mean the scales, those false agreements come off of the eyes, and we can see ourselves and our lives with a new, fresh perspective that doesn't have the old learning that has kept us stuck for so long. We can we then have eyes to see things that we otherwise wouldn't be able to see, even in finding God in a game of croquet. Now, the hard part about that is getting the scales to come off the eyes, and that can happen.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing I love about I'm so happy you're coming, Abraham. At the point of this recording, we're like 2 weeks out from the retreat. You're in a perfect spot to be coming to this retreat, and I believe that if you come with an open heart, if you come with a willingness to receive whatever is going to be there for you, I don't know what it is yet, but I'm convinced God's going to show up for you. So with those things that Brannon just said, I was just thinking about this, that your original question was, how do I have a sustainable recovery? And I think one of the biggest things that I see, and you're no exception here with the clients that I work with, is they think that they're going to sustain a recovery by gripping tighter, by doing more, by completing the task list, by getting everything done and continuing to be perfect. And they're motivated still on some level by compulsion or fear or shame. And that is a motivational energy. It's just not sustainable. But when a man has experiences where he's able to take away those scales from his eyes, those false beliefs, and simply receive love, and then come to believe that he's actually lovable regardless of what he does, love is a sustainable energy. Love renews itself. God is love. And when we come to understand God by allowing him to teach us who we are, we then choose to do the things that produce the outcomes in our life that we've always wanted, and it becomes sustainable. It becomes a positive feedback loop. It doesn't absolve us of all of our problems in life. You're still going to go through what it means to be divorced and have to navigate those challenges and through your own traumas, but you'll be able to fall back and dip from the well of sustainable love. And that sometimes means less compulsive doing and more open receiving, which sounds weird. What are you thinking, Abraham?
I love it. I'm thinking, I'm just processing through how do I make that happen. It sounds like I want to compulsively make it happen.
There's a video by Alan Watts on YouTube, and it's called something like "Life's a Dance." Do you know who Alan Watts is? He's a philosopher. He's gone now, but he talks about how we're conditioned into believing life is this destination. We go from first to second to third grade. We work our way through college. We end up in a job that we hate, sitting in a cubicle and whatever, right? And he said, what if life is more like a symphony? Like the conductor's not up there just trying to get to the end as fast as possible. The conductor is just flowing in the music. And so life is like a dance. When you're dancing with somebody, you're just in that moment. And so I believe a lot of the work that you need to do, Abraham, is to put out all of the noise of everything that you should be doing and accomplishing, and bask in gratitude a little bit. Just smell the roses. Just really feel the sunshine on your face. And to do that every single day. And when we talk about God winks, that's what that is you're present in that moment, and you're just feeling the warmth of God's love, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like I've experienced some of that, and I don't know how to be in that mindset more often, but I definitely want to work towards that more.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, Abraham, that you don't achieve recovery by being 100% always in that beautiful Zen place. It's that you know that you can trust yourself in the moments that you don't feel that, and then when you become aware of it, you have a way to reground yourself into those places. That's part of the sustainable recovery, is that we live a life that's gonna, and you use this language, you grew up with a really kind of fixed mindset, welcome to the club, and now you're trying to teach yourself a growth mindset. You're going to bounce between fixed and growth a lot. And it's noticing and transitioning from fixed to growth that's going to be part of the dance Brannon's talking about. You're not going to get there in bask in God's love and then be like, oh, wings, halo, like the next 40 years of my life are just in this blissful state. It's going to be more of like, I have moments of that. And then when I'm not there, I become aware of it. And then I allow myself to be regrounded to those same fuel sources that are sustainable.
But I think it's about, I agree with you, Tyler. I think it's about kind of where we're pointing the aim, so to speak. So like if we're pointed in the direction of prove myself, become better, become more, then you produce more shame. If you're pointed in the direction of get myself to that state of Zen, get myself to that state of presence, where I don't have to earn it, I just need to figure out how to get all the noise out of my head for a moment and just feel it. Then, and if you can learn how to do that again and again, then you get your questions answered. And then you don't show up resentful, angry, disconnected, needing to prove yourself. Your shame answers get taken care of, right? And then everything else in your life starts to shift and change as a result, versus the other way, right?
Which is interesting, Brannon, because when you're in that state, all of a sudden you find yourself willingly doing some of the things that were on the task list, but now you're actually getting the benefit from having done them because the heart's in alignment with it, rather than the compulsion that's telling you you'll be a good person or you'll be in recovery as soon as you do this.
Exactly.
Once you receive the love, you find yourself going, oh, I want to continue to reach out and find a relationship with God. Oh, you know what? I want to take better care of my body. Like, I'll read exercise.
Some scripture. I'll whatever it is, right?
It's just tapping into the source that you're talking about.
Yep, exactly. Well, Abraham, I can't wait to have you at the retreat.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. What's coming up for you right now,
Can't
Abraham?
wait to kick your butt a little bit, Abraham.
That sounds great. I hope I can whoop you at something.
Abraham, what are you kind of feeling at, after having had this discussion with us for just the last 40 minutes or so?
Well, I didn't bring it up earlier, but Saturdays have been a real trick for me lately. Every other Saturday I'm by myself, and inevitably I end up, it's like 4 p.m. and I haven't done a single thing, And so I'm thinking from what you guys are saying, I still, maybe there's still room to give myself a little bit more space. And I kind of like the idea of letting go a little bit more and trusting. Oh, trusting is so hard. Trusting God. Sometimes He doesn't arrange things the way you want them to be arranged, but I can trust more. Yeah, for sure.
Abraham, you alluded to the fact that I already know you a little bit from other group and things, but you come on a show like this with the courage that you do and the way that you do, and I just want you to know how grateful I am to know you the way that I do and to have your influence in my life. So thank you, Abraham, for who you already are.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, Abraham, thank you for coming on the show. I hope we answered your question a little bit. I can't wait to hear about your Saturdays where you meditate and zen out all day long. So really appreciate you, Abraham. Appreciate your vulnerability, your authenticity today with us. Talking about your failures, talking about your struggles. It's awesome that you had the courage to do that, and I really do appreciate it. So just want to say, if anyone's listening and this has been helpful, give a shout out to Abraham. Or if you relate to him, maybe you could come on as well and talk to us, and we can talk through some things as well. So thanks again, Abraham. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.